Hi everyone, if you're new to my channel, I'm Kat and I make videos on notebooks, stationery, study and reading. I've shared before on this channel how I like to plan, memory keep and journal in my notebooks, but today I'd like to specifically talk about the personal impact that using notebooks regularly these past 2 years has helped me, and specifically how it helped me organize my mind and develop my identity. So to understand how notebooks change my perspective on myself, I think it's important to give you some context on where I'm at in life. So I just turned 27 a couple of weeks ago, which means I left high school 10 years ago. I finished uni 4 years ago and I've been working full-time in a corporate job ever since. Lately though, I've realized that I don't really know myself, at least not in the way I thought I did. Or maybe it's more accurate to say that I'm starting to figure that out. What I'm seeing for the first time is how much of my teenage years and my early 20s were spent trying on different roles and pouring my energy into things that I thought were cool or successful, things I thought I wanted. But now I'm starting to question if they were truly what I wanted in the first place. To explain all of this, I'll start from the beginning. So, growing up, I was a precocious child, and I was always praised by the adults around me for being smart and perceptive, and I also had a very unwavering and inflexible moral compass that made me feel like I had everything figured out. I was often confused by the problems that adults around me faced in their lives when I thought the solution was very clear. I remember thinking that I had all the answers. I'm not sure if this is a common thing for quote-unquote gifted and talented children, but I think that sense of early superiority and expectation placed on me, which I adopted in myself, it led me to be brutally honest, I didn't want to grow up. I remember thinking that growing up meant I would lose my specialness, and that as my age increased year by year from 11, 12, and 13, I felt like I was losing my chance to be the prodigy child genius that my parents wanted me to be. So in my early teen years, I learned to try really, really hard, and I molded myself to whatever I thought was necessary to succeed. I developed this drive to push myself, and I was also always moving the goalposts for myself. Being above average felt normal, and anything less than that felt like a failure. And any discomfort I felt was always squashed because I thought it was necessary to progress as fast as possible. And so the key point here, and the reason why this is all relevant, is that I became really good at crossing my own boundaries and comfort zones, to the point where I didn't really know where my comfort zones ended anymore. And I didn't really know what I genuinely preferred to do, what I felt happy and relaxed doing, what made me content. Life felt like a perpetual race where I was constantly working hard at something. And even when I did reach a particular goal, I couldn't truly celebrate it because it felt more like an obligation than an accomplishment. So I have all these notebooks scattered in front of me, but the one I really wanted to talk about is this one that I kept in 2024 throughout last year. It was my journal, my confidant, and my confession booth. I had it housed in this Travelers Company passport cover throughout last year, and it's basically a blank MD notebook cut to size myself. And it was in these pages in particular that I started to realize and to admit to myself that how I was approaching life may not be the best for myself. I started to see patterns in my entries that showed these huge mood swings. I would be paralyzed by shame and embarrassment and self-criticism in one entry about the most benign incidents. And then in the next entry, I would write about how amazing life was and how anything I wanted, I seemed to achieve. And I know it sounds really self-aggrandizing, but I'm trying to be, candid here. And the words that I wrote down weren't meant to be shared, but I'm sharing it now in case it helps you. So this notebook was a record of my thoughts and feelings as I was experiencing them. And it gave me a very clear view of my behavior over time. It helped me understand myself in ways I never had before, and it let me see through the idealized versions of myself I had built up, or the assumptions I had made about myself. It gave me the data to work with, like an actual log that allowed me to reflect on my habits and my preferences and my thought processes. For me personally, as someone who's very capricious with extreme ranges of emotions, which seem to be always changing, this notebook gave me a way to start seeing myself more clearly outside of how I was feeling in that moment. So one example I can think of is I've always described myself as impulsive and flexible because I thought that was cooler than being predictable and boring. But then through my entries, I realized that I actually thrive on routines, and I love structure and the joy of having the same things to look forward to day by day. And I just basically never gave myself that structure that would help me thrive. What makes a notebook so powerful is that it's an insular space. It's just your thoughts and your words on paper. There's no outside influences. It's really just you and your own reflections. And in that sense, it can be a safe space for exploration where you can work through things without a judgment or a pressure to perform. One important thing for myself, though, is that I had to stop thinking about my notebook as a productivity system that I'm trying to win at least this journal in particular. I have other planners that I could plan in. But if I saw this journal as a productivity system in a way, I ended up lying to myself about how I was using this. I had to be honest about what I was writing, no matter how full of conceit or how self-critical my entries were. It had to be a place that I could reflect so that I could get clarity about how I was feeling. And to do that, I had to be honest with myself without judgment. I think it's not just the notebook itself, but also the timing in my life right now is the right time for me to be open to journaling like this. I feel like my preferences in life have begun to crystallize. As I'm getting older, I'm starting to feel more strongly about what I do like and what I don't like. And I feel like there's a me to be excavated here if I were to start digging. Whereas when I was younger, it really felt like I was a blank canvas. And I strongly believed, and I still do, that human beings are more liquid than we think. And we can really become whatever we put our minds to. And the main thing holding us back is our limiting beliefs. But now I do see that there's a line to be drawn at some point where you do have to listen to yourself and pay attention to what you actually want to do and what you're drawn to doing versus what's draining for you and unsustainable. And I just had to come to realize that this is not a limiting belief. It's not something that's going to hold me back. It's just reality. And part of growing up is growing out of that fear of not living up to, I guess, the potential that adults pushed on me. So ultimately, journaling helped me cut through all of that noise and see myself for who I actually am and not who I thought I should be or who I was trying to be. It gave me that space to reflect on my patterns of behavior and the impact that my goals and my decisions had on me mentally. I also hope that if you're watching this to the end, that your notebooks can do the same for you and that you might be more inspired to journal more. I know in my last video, I shared how I'm currently using my traveler's notebook as a planner, but I am missing the aspect of having a journal in a pocket size, which I can take everywhere and sort of confide in. I have a couple more pages left at the back of this one that I started in 2024. Quite a fair few, so I'd like to continue using this journal. I just don't have a cover for it yet. But once I do, I will update you all on that. But thank you so much for listening to my rambles today. And I know it was a bit of a more personal video, but I hope that this can be something that will inspire you to journal more and to understand some of the benefits that journaling can do for you. Thank you. I'll see you next time.